Hey guys, today we're going to be wrapping up this quick series of videos, and I'm going to explain how to understand the exposure triangle and use it to take great photos. As I mentioned in my other videos, there are three main settings on any SLR camera that work together to adjust the exposure or the brightness of your photos. The three main settings that you want to make sure you know how to adjust on your camera are the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Each one of these settings can either brighten or darken your photos that you take depending on how they are set. Whenever you're wanting to take a photo, just try to keep in mind what we were talking about in the earlier videos and how each of these settings affect your photo. So here are my steps to always having properly exposed photos. So number one, start by setting the ISO to the lowest setting on your camera, or what's considered the base ISO, to have as little noise as possible. Number two, roughly choose what f-stop you want your aperture to be set at. If you're wanting a nice shallow depth of field with a blurred out background, try to keep your f-stop around 2.8 or 1.4. If you're taking a photo of a landscape, consider keeping more of your photo in focus by setting your f-stop to around f8 or f11. Number three, roughly choose the shutter speed that you would ideally like to use. If you're wanting to freeze the movement in your photo, remember to use a quicker shutter speed, around 1/250th of a second or quicker depending on your subject. Number four, take a test photo with these ideal settings and see where your exposure lands. And lastly, in number five, make any adjustments needed to these three settings. If your photo is too dark or underexposed, you'll need to either open up the aperture to a wider f-stop number, or you'll need to slow down the shutter speed to let in more light. If you can't adjust these two settings any further without introducing motion blur into your photo, you can adjust the ISO to a higher setting as long as you're okay with just a little bit of noise being introduced into your photos. And the opposite is true if your photos are too bright or overexposed. You can either close down your aperture to let in less light, or you can speed up your shutter speed to have it exposed for a shorter amount of time. Or you can always bring down your ISO setting if there's room to do so. With these few key steps in mind, you'll be able to understand the exposure triangle better, and you'll be able to take great photos in practically any situation. The very last thing to do is just to pick up an SLR camera and play around with these settings. And don't be afraid to take photos in manual mode, it's really not that scary. And with that being said, that's it for this video. If you found this video useful or helpful, make sure to let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.